The cold has never cared about technology, and that truth was learned the hard way. When people talk about extreme cold survival today, the conversation almost always drifts toward equipment. Thicker sleeping bags, better insulation, higher price tags. But history tells a harsher story. During the Second World War, soldiers endured winter conditions that shattered modern assumptions about comfort and preparedness. These men were not protected by cutting-edge gear. They survived because they understood one unforgiving reality. Cold kills fastest when heat escapes, wind moves freely, and moisture steals what little warmth the body can generate. Survival came down to systems, not supplies. And one of the most effective systems ever used has almost vanished from modern survival thinking. Before we get into that system, take a moment to support the channel. If you value deep, historically grounded survival knowledge, hit the like button. Share this video with someone who understands that real survival is built on experience, not marketing. Leave a comment with your thoughts or questions, and subscribe to Warfront Survival so you don't miss lessons drawn from history's most unforgiving environments. Now, let's get into the field realities that modern manuals often overlook. Why modern cold weather sleep systems often fail in real conditions. Modern sleeping bags are designed for controlled environments. They assume dry ground, lofted insulation, and proper sleeping pads to prevent heat loss through conduction. World War II soldiers rarely had any of that. They slept on frozen earth, snow, mud, or waterlogged terrain. Wool uniforms absorb moisture. Down insulation collapsed when wet. Issued winter sleeping bags were bulky, slow to deploy, and frequently discarded during rapid movements or retreats. Most critically, insulation alone could not stop wind. A steady breeze strips heat faster than layers can replace it. Soldiers learned quickly that blocking airflow mattered more than adding thickness. When necessity took over, soldiers were, forced to rethink warmth from first principles. Surviving the cold on the battlefield wasn't about comfort at all. It was really just about lasting until morning. So, soldiers stripped survival down to the fundamentals. Trap body heat, eliminate wind, reduce exposed surface area, and limit moisture loss. These simple principles, in fact, led to one of the most effective cold weather shelters ever improvised under fire. It was crude, uncomfortable, and, honestly, life-saving. Soldiers came to know it as the shelter tube. So, what exactly was the World War II shelter tube, and why did it work so well? The shelter tube wasn't a manufactured product at all. It was, in fact, a battlefield adaptation. Soldiers used whatever they had, issued shelter halves, ponchos, or canvas tent sections, and joined them into a sort of cylindrical cocoon. Two soldiers would lace or button their shelter halves together, wrap the canvas around themselves while fully clothed, and seal both ends using packs, spare clothing, snow, or even earth. This shape created a dead airspace that trapped body heat and, completely blocked the wind. Snow piled on top acted as insulation rather than a threat. German mountain troops refined the method using the Zeltbahn, while American and Soviet units independently adopted similar designs in Italy, the Ardennes, and on the Eastern Front. Inside these tubes, temperatures routinely rose above freezing, even when the outside air dropped far below zero. This system really addressed all three enemies of cold wind, conduction, and evaporation. condensation would form on the inner fabric rather than soaking any insulation. Soldiers slept in their boots because frozen footwear could, cripple them the next morning. Heat loss slowed dramatically since airflow stopped entirely. Why shared heat mattered more than individual insulation? One of the most overlooked lessons from the shelter tube is just how heat generation scales. 2 soldiers inside a confined space produced far more warmth than one alone, and, 3 produced even more. Heat generation increased faster than heat loss because the surface area exposed to the cold did not rise proportionally. This simple principle allowed exhausted men to survive nights that would have killed them in individual sleeping systems. Modern survival culture often emphasizes self-reliance, but honestly, history shows that cooperation was a force multiplier against the cold. How to apply the shelter tube system in modern survival situations. You do not need World War II canvas to replicate this system. Any tarp, poncho, or heavy fabric can work if shaped correctly. The key is form. A flat shelter bleeds heat. A tube traps it. In freezing conditions, when you find yourself without a sleeping bag, you should roll a tarp lengthwise into a cylinder that's just wide enough for you to crawl inside. Overlap the seams instead of laying them flat, and then seal both ends using snow, dirt, packs, or even clothing, whatever you've got on hand. It's important to elevate yourself from the ground, so use branches, spare garments, or folded layers to reduce conductive heat loss. Always keep your boots and headgear on. Try to control your breathing, limiting moisture build-up inside. If you're alone, reduce the internal volume as much as possible. And if you're with others, share the space. So, why was discomfort accepted and comfort considered irrelevant? Well, those shelter tubes were not pleasant. Movement was restricted, sleeping positions were rigid, and moisture was simply unavoidable. But soldiers understood that discomfort was still preferable to hypothermia. Modern outdoor culture often equates survival with comfort, but wartime survival rejected that illusion entirely. The tube enforced discipline. Stillness conserved heat. Endurance rather than convenience was what mattered. That mindset, frankly, saved lives. Why does this lesson still matter today? The shelter tube, really, proves that survival is not about acquiring better gear. It's about understanding physics, physiology, and your environment. The men who survived those winter campaigns weren't warmer because they had superior equipment. They were warmer because they worked with the elements instead of fighting them blindly. This isn't nostalgia. It's field-tested knowledge, earned in the coldest conditions imaginable. If this breakdown of historical survival systems added value to your understanding, make sure you subscribe to Warfront Survival. Share this video with someone who still believes survival is about buying products rather than building systems. Leave a comment with your thoughts or experiences. History, you see, is not just something to study. It's something to learn from, especially when the cold simply does not forgive mistakes.